It's evident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show.
Step Afrika!
Greetings, beloved.
Greetings.
I am Rock Newman, and we thank you so very much for tuning in the Rock Newman Show 2.0 today. We know you could be doing many other things, but the fact that you are taking the time to watch us, we are eternally grateful. I have a show today that I could not wait to bring to you. Our guest sitting next to me is C. Brian Williams, the founder of Step Afrika. Next to him is Mfoniso Akpan, and she is the artistic director?
That's correct.
Artistic director of Step Afrika, and Jakari Sherman. What's your title, Jakari?
I am the director of this show on the migration.
You're the director of migration.
Yes, sir.
And folks, the reason why I had to bring this to you, and I'm so excited, I'm going to do something that I rarely do. I'm going to read some things. First of all, I want to hold this up. The show that is happening at the arena stage is called The Migration, Reflections on Jacob Lawrence. So here at the arena stage, this show sets the audience on fire. A lot of you might not quite connect and understand what the migration is all about, and we'll talk about it, but I thought it was condensed very well in this playbill that says, this is a story of the exodus of African Americans who left their homes and farms in the South around the time of World War I and traveled to northern industrial cities in search of better lives. It was a momentous journey. Their movement resulted in one of the biggest population shifts in the history of the United States, and the migration is still going on for many today. There is something else I want to read. It said, I was leaving the South to fling myself into the unknown. I was taking a part of the South to transplant in alien soil to see if it could grow differently, if it could drink of new and cool rains, bend in strange winds, respond to the warmth of other suns, and perhaps bloom. These are folks that living in the South under Jim Crow, knowing and hoping that there was something better beyond, and making the decision, I may not be going home, but I'm getting out of here. Brian, as the founder of Step Afrika, what was it that drew you to this, that made you know you wanted to bring this to life?
Well, first, it's always good to sit down with you, and thank you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation for so many reasons, but the migration, the Great Migration, as you've already set the stage, is a huge moment in not only African American history, but American history. And we can't forget Jacob Lawrence's role in documenting that movement for us. So I think that was the first inspiration. What Jacob Lawrence had created with his 60-panel migration series, that it's just for me, it's a revolutionary piece of art. It documents our story in this beautiful way. It gave so much nobility to our culture and to our history that I loved his work, and I've loved his work really my whole life. So I think that was the first focus, is being able to use his paintings as a narrative, as an inspiration for Step Afrika's performance. But then as we got deeper into it, I started dealing more with what this migration meant to African American people, and how much it changed our country, our possibilities, and how no one is really untouched by this story. Like literally no one in the African American community is untouched by this story of migration, whether you left or were left behind or chose not to go or couldn't go or were the first to leave. It's just so much of our history is tied up in this moment. It was like kind of our first chance to make a decision and move on our own in this country. And that moment just is worthy of what we've created together and then so much more.
Yeah. Well said, well said, well said. Thank you. I sat on an aisle, thank goodness, where I could stretch out my left knee because I injured it a while ago. So I'm not immobile, but I kind of am not doing 100-yard sprints. not doing 100-yard sprints right.
Gotcha.
I'm not the best shape I've ever been in my life. And as I sat there flexing my left knee and saw, let me digress, folks. Y'all need to come to the arena stage. Y'all need to get tickets to come see this play. I sat there with my left knee in a little bit of pain and stiffness and saw the incredible energy and power and performance coming from a world of athletics where I played, and then I managed world-class athletes. I know what it takes to be physically at the top of your game. So, artistic director sitting over here, if you could share what it is that the artists have to do to sharpen their tools where they come out with that kind of power and that kind of energy, which I don't mean to be giving anything away here, but causes the audience to jump to their feet and roar by the sheer power of what they've brought to that stage. Tell me about that.
Well, the dancers that we have in this company, they are full-time artists. So this is what they do for their full-time employment. And so when we are not on tour and when we are not on stage, we are in the studio rehearsing Monday through Friday from about 9, 10 a.m. to about 5, 6 p.m. And so we take our craft very seriously. They are dedicated artists. We are working, we are stretching, we are performing in the studio so that we can bring that same energy to the stage. There's a lot of research in terms of the dance styles, in terms of the body and how we move and how we're able to translate that from studio to the stage. So nutrition is very important for us as well. Making sure that we get the proper amount of rest is important for us as well. We do all of these things so that you can have all of that power that you said, to see it on that stage.
I'm telling you, to see that kind of championship, perfection, and quality, I sat there from the beginning to the end, just absolutely amazed at the strength, the athleticism, the power, the passion that was exuded in every scene. And just want to say to you guys, man, congratulations. You've done something. You brought something in, and you've been doing it for a long time now, but right here at the arena stage.
But
Did I say before y'all need to get a ticket to come see this here?
But you know, it's a reminder, too, that dancers are world-class athletes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, we don't think of them sometimes as that, but we should.
Yes.
Because, and what they put, and they train their body and they develop their body to deliver, you know, this movement in really beautiful and exciting ways. And it's one way to see, it's one thing to see Step Afrika, a photo.
Yeah.
But to be in space with artists who are at this level, this high, I mean, the artists of Step Afrika are at the height of the art form of stepping. Like, no one in the world can execute that art form better than Step Afrika.
Yeah.
And to see it and feel it in the space, you know, is what I think also transforms. It's very, you know, how you feel, and how you're able to not just see it, but feel what they're doing.
Yeah, you leave out, I mean, I left out like, I need to pay more money. I saw this show.
I like that.
I bet you do. But I was like, Lord have mercy, if this cost me a whole lot more, I feel like I should have paid more. Jakari Sherman, you are the director of Migrations, Reflections on Jacob Lawrence. So I need to ask you something, because if I can pronounce this word, ethnochoreologist. Now, if I didn't pronounce it right, tell me how to pronounce it.
That was good, right?
And then tell me about being an ethnochoreologist.
Yeah. Well, ethnochoreology is essentially the study of culture and how it influences and is influenced by movement practices around the world. So we think about stepping, for example, and the history of stepping. And so ethnochoreology would talk about how the initiation rituals of stepping find their way into the movement that we do, how the gestures of locking our arms together represent or reflect the history of locking arms in unison with your brothers and your sisters when you join a fraternity or sorority. So it just looks at the ways that we find the parts are sort of cultural artifacts imprinted on not only the movement forms, but musical forms and even food and fashion and all the parts of what comprise a culture. And so, you know, with something like the migration, we've taken the history of this really important part of African American culture, and we're finding ways to tell that story that is part of the history of stepping and sort of using the form to tell its own history in a way, and combining that with traditional West African forms and very early African American percussive forms that you'll find in the show as well. All of this telling not only the history of stepping, but again, like a particular history of African American culture.
Now I know.
Now you
now I know. I don't know if I'll be able to explain it, but now I know. So again, first of all, the arena stage is extraordinarily beautiful.
Yeah, stunning space. A stunning space.
It's a stunning space. It's beautiful. It's easily accessible.
Yes.
It's all those good things. And Lord knows, I'm getting ready to. Don't really have a relationship at all with arena stage, but my visit here to see this show was impressive in multiple different ways. And I want to we're talking about the actual show itself, the migration, But I want to bring up a name that I would. First of all, I want to say this. I hold up the photo of the playbill. It is, if not the top explanation, an introduction and illumination of what's happening on stage. It is so good. When you come, make sure you get a playbill. If you don't get a chance to read it beforehand, take it home, because I was so mesmerized by the performance. When I came back and read the playbill, it connected dots for me that I think that I missed because I was so intense on watching what was going on.
Yeah.
Everybody's movement, everybody's the skills and all the rest. And her name is Hannah Sharif.
Hannah Sharif, the artistic director of Arena Stage.
She's the artistic director of the building from which we're doing this interview.
Yes.
And she explains over 6 million Americans, many less than one generation removed from America's 4-century-long practice of chattel enslavement, fled the Jim Crow South in search of safety and greater education and economic opportunities in America, in American North, Midwest, and West. So that succinctly tells you what the dynamic of what happened. Now, Jacob Lawrence's, as you say, depiction, his skill to put it, to make the art, obviously plays such an incredible story, a part in this story. And I happen to believe, for folks who are looking in, who count on anything that I say, that Step Afrika, as we said earlier, founded by Brian, who was a former stepper at Howard University, the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, I think it makes a difference also. It adds another very important visual audio layer to what was the migration, to the artwork that depicted it, and now it being brought to life by the incredible performance and artistry of what you guys are doing.
Well, you know, thanks, Rock. And I think when you think about this show, and I've been watching it for many years now, but now watching it here at Arena Stage, you know, it really reminds me that there's no other company that could really do this show quite like Step Afrika's done it, because we're dealing with forms that prior to Step Afrika's work really weren't found in the American theater, stepping being one of those. Stepping as an artistic tool is something that Step Afrika's kind of pioneered, right, in terms of bringing it into the American theater and then pushing it from its origins on a college campus into how we're playing with the tradition here. And then I was looking and doing things like the ring shout, these early African-American traditions that you'll see here and there that's preserved very beautifully in South Carolina by some groups there and Georgia. But now Step Afrika is bringing that to stages that would never get a chance to really experience that form and consistently. So it's like there's so much work that's gone into the research and the development of these forms. One of my favorite pieces, I might as well tell the audience, Off the Train, is something that Jakari choreographed, but only Jakari could really choreograph that piece, if you think about it, in terms of understanding the movement that he chose to beautifully demonstrate brothers coming off the train, you know, into a new life, and using the Alpha train to tell that story. I mean, it's just unique.
Yeah.
Incredibly unique.
Yeah. Stop me if you think I'm going too far in terms of telling in advance what it is. But you're talking about the train, and then the idea of you got 3 or 4 brothers with suitcases.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And what you did with that and the movement that was created with that. Akpan.
Yes.
So I'm reading every word on every page. And part of it was reading the people in the reading about the people in the company.
Yeah.
And I started to think, well, I know Brian is an alpha, but is he some kind of way partial to the AKAs? Because there were so many people that were listening.
A lot of AKAs.
That was AKAs.
A lot of Zaytans.
And I got to your name, and it was a Delta.
Yes.
I was like, okay, we got to have her.
Yeah.
We got to have her representing. Because if I sit in here and we talk about too many AKAs, I'm gonna hear something. So
But that's important to remember. I mean, Mafanza Delta, she's artistic director.
Yeah.
Historically, I'm sure she's going to say this. We've hit all. It's just it comes in waves. Sometimes it's Delta heavy.
Yeah.
Now it's AK and Zeta.
Zeta heavy.
Sometimes it's Alpha. Sometimes it's Qs. It's been the Divine Nine has always found its home in Step Afrika.
Yeah.
We have had representation from every member of the Divine Nine in the last 30 years in Step Afrika. So that's beautiful. And we also have members of other organizations.
Right.
You know, if you have a passion for stepping, if you know stepping, if you can come here and learn, if you have a passion for other art forms, we incorporate all of that. And that's why you're able to get this beautiful synergy on the stage of power and dance and music and just experience.
An approach to the art form.
So we're talking about AKA Delta and the Divine Nine community. Something else that I was motivated by as I'm reading through and understanding the lives of the folks that are in the company that's bringing this work to such rich life was there were several mentions of the individual, of several individuals being from Duke Ellington. And let me repeat, I'm doing this interview from the lobby of the arena stage in Southwest Washington, D.C. Right up the street there a ways is the Duke Ellington School of Performing Arts. And it is an incubator for the kind of artists that come here. Now, was it in any way intentional to seek out Duke Ellington graduates, or have they just emerged as some of the best?
I think they're just emerged.
Yeah.
We found connections with a few artists through the city throughout this work and throughout previous works to sort of infuse that that DC flavor into a lot of the works that we've done.
Yeah, but the intention is always just to find the best artists who love this art form of stepping, who love to teach the art form of stepping. And every year we hold auditions in May, and people come from across the country to audition, and we have a process to select, and it speaks to what Duke Ellington is able to do, that a lot of them do find their way onto our stage.
I had my cell phone up here. I was going to show you a text, but my producer told me to put it away. And the text, my wife texts me. You're not supposed to be using your phone while the show is going on, but she texted me and said, "How's the show?" She is very interesting. She is very much a yoga type person. She does the chant, she goes to silent retreat, she Vipassana. I know those terms only because she says, I'm doing all of this. She is Zen. She is Zen probably the opposite of me. Zen all the way.
I love it.
So she said, how's the show? I said, when you're able to come, we'll have to put a seatbelt on you because when she is prone to just whatever level of African DNA that is in her, When those drums start to playing, I said, we don't have to put you in a seatbelt. we are going to have to put you there in a seatbelt. And so folks, I'm describing just the brilliance of the drums. And then y'all did that piece where the brother is, am I have his name right, Lionel Lyles?
Yes.
Did that saxophone?
Yeah.
You know, I'm so interested in the saxophone. One time I put on Facebook, who you got? Clarence, Big Man Clemens,
Okay.
or Maceo Parker, or Junior Walker,
Yes, yeah.
I love the saxophone.
Got it.
And that piece that brother did just was scintillating and powerful, and folks were quiet and enraptured.
Yeah. It's called Train.
Yeah.
That piece is called Train. We spell it Trane. It's an original composition that was composed by Dr. William Smith, who's actually Jakari, our frat brother.
Okay.
And he actually wrote the score. He knew how to step. He stepped at Howard University. He wrote the score, composed it based on the rhythms of steps that he knew. So it's very specific to Step Afrika. And then Jakari, I'll never forget the story when we actually first started working on that piece. It's our first time playing with stepping and jazz. And we were questioning, would it work? How could it work? And you can talk about that process, which was so interesting.
Yeah. I remember we were working on that piece as we were traveling. We were on the road.
We sure
so
were.
that piece got choreographed in probably 3 different countries as we were on the road. But it was also an interesting conversation between myself and other fraternity brothers about what that tradition looked like on various campuses around the country. Brothers from Morehouse, from Howard, and from, I was at Tulane, and just all over the place, and about what the train looked like. So it was also this you talked about ethnochoreology, this conversation about how this movement evolves and changes, and how it's this sort of central piece was something that united us all. And so we had a lot of interesting fellowship around what was it like when you, at your school, and
How
your
do you
school,
train?
how do you train? And found ourselves in the studio just sharing with each other that tradition. And then this piece sort of developed very organically, if I can say that, out of, number one, this brother who composed a beautiful piece, and then all these other brothers coming together to share in the way that fraternities do about that experience in different places.
And I remember also, in terms of in the studio, the artists were just responding. I think I had bought like 3 or 4 jazz CDs, and just came to the studio and said, y'all play for 3 hours. We went to the studio. I think we were in Washington State. And I know some of the stuff that you all were playing with Mfon, responding, became the choreography as well. It became incorporated. So it's a really organic piece, so distinct. And I think the audience, when they see it, you have to kind of see Train in person.
Yes.
To really understand.
Yes.
It is a beautiful piece because you have the stepping, you have contemporary movement, you also have beautiful costuming. The colors that we specifically chose for a lot of the costumes in this particular piece, if you just glance up, you will see those same colors, exact colors in the paintings, in the in those panels.
Yes.
The lights help support it, the music is supporting it, the choreography, it's just a beautiful blend that really transforms the experience of what you're seeing. You feel like you're a part of it.
Very much so. And it's so much something.
So much something.
It's so much something. This play has something for all adults who come to see it. Now, I don't think there's an age restriction. But what I mean by that is, let me try to give this example. I want to stay in bounds here. But I went to the pen relays one time with the lady that I was dating, way back when. I was just out of college, a long time ago. And at some point, the women races were going on. And I was like, let me just ask you a question. Have you looked at their backsides or their legs? Do you see, as a woman, the same thing that I see? She said, I probably didn't pay that much attention because I was looking at the men's backsides. And so I bring this up because there's something for everybody. There's something for everybody in this play. And as serious, it's a serious subject. It's a life transforming subject. It's a country changing subject. But it's also got beauty and just the physical beauty of the men and the women and how they draw you in with the powerful performance. I wanted to ask you, do you ever have you gotten any different reactions from male patrons versus female patrons at all?
I don't think I've ever really taken notice of the differences in terms of the reaction. The reaction is really just awestruck, or they're very emotionally invested in what we've been able to show them. It's universal in terms of how people come out of the show, and to the point where it's, you come into the show, maybe you were really only focused on the dancers, that so much that you want to come back because now you want to focus on other parts. You want to take it all in. There's so many different elements, like you said, there is something for everyone. But it's something that if you come one time, I guarantee you would want to come a second and a third.
I've seen this show so many times, and every time I watch it, I see something different. I mean, you could come to this show and literally just sit there and watch the beautiful paintings of Jacob Lawrence and experience them in a way that you could never experience them. Because you should still go to the museum and see them on the wall, but you experience them very different. Here, they're projected. Sometimes they're abstract. They're close up. You can look at the work in a really different way. And I love being able to pay honor to his work by allowing folks to see it in the way that Step Afrika presents it, you know. And then, there's something we don't talk about a lot in this show that's also very magical, which is the djembe as an instrument. And, normally you see the djembe strictly at a West African concert or performance. Step Afrika uses it in that context, but it's such a powerful instrument that can really transform a space. And we have just some amazing master djembe artists in the company. I mean, for this production that share their talents, every night. And I like sharing that aspect of African culture too, because for me, it kind of thinks, what would have happened if that drum had survived here in the Americas? How would it have changed the people? What would we be doing differently if drums had remained a huge part of our experience in the Americas? But of course, it was taken away.
So I'm a believer from personal experience that one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it, to try to teach it to somebody else. In your bio of sorts here, it talks about you teaching on different continents. You've been to Belgium, UK, Africa, and the rest. What have you gotten most and best from your role as a teacher?
I think, I'll tell you what, from my role as a teacher is where I really got even the idea for Step Afrika.
Oh, tell me about that.
So I'm actually, when I finished Howard, I graduate, I moved. My first job out of Howard is to live and work in Lesotho. In a small country in Southern Africa that many people miss when they study the continent of Africa. They miss this little dot. And so I'm actually teaching in Lesotho when I am first introduced to the South African gumboot dance. And so it was a relationship that I created with two of my students, asking them about this gumboot dance, where it came from, would they teach me a few steps? And then it was, I can still see these two guys right now. When I taught them the steps of the fraternity steps from Howard, you know, the excitement that they had, you know, about learning this thing they'd never seen before. How did I know it? How do you know the gumboot dance is like the gumboot dance, but it's not? It just created all this energy. So I think teaching creates an energy because you're interacting with the next generation, and that inspires what's next.
Yeah.
So that exchange with those students is what led me to start Step Afrika, is what lit the fire. So I would probably say that happens in the classroom, which is really, I never thought about it that way, but it did.
Yeah. Jakari, you also have lectured around the globe. I want to ask you the same thing. Your lectures and your communication in teaching others, especially about something that is largely this whole stepping thing coming out of the university, the fraternities and the sororities. And you're teaching that in, again, Belgium, UK, Greece. What's the reaction?
There's a lot of fascination, a lot of love for these forms in those places. I think for me, like before teaching, it's my own learning process. And I studied in Ireland, and I think like the biggest thing that I gained from that was just a level of compassion and sensitivity to culture. And so it caused me to have to think about not only other cultures, but my own culture, the culture of stepping, and to understand it in a way that I can then relay it to someone else. And I think in that process, whether I'm teaching in Greece or I am teaching this to the artists who will then perform it, the difference in teaching is that you absorb something knowing that you have a responsibility to relay it to someone with accuracy and with integrity. And so you're not just taking it in for yourself, you're taking it in so that you can teach someone else, knowing that they will then be on a stage performing that work, or they will have to speak to a child after the show or something. And so so I think I look at the dissemination of this information and the teaching of information or choreography with the idea toward how it will be passed on, a different level of accountability in that regard.
And I want to raise up one of our teachers. I think we should talk about collective teachers, which is Dr. David Pleasant, you know, who is the one who choreographed one of the works in this piece is called Drum Folk. And he is an amazing teacher who we brought to DC maybe 15, 20 years ago to start teaching us about early African-American percussive dance traditions. And so he introduced us to the Stoner Rebellion of 1739. He taught us the Negro Act of 1740 and the dance forms that were created soon after those ordinances took place. And that kind of transformed our work. You know, as a teacher, if you really think about it, it led to so much more investigation, exploration. We started going deeper into our culture. I mean, and that moment in the show, which I don't want to give away, people need to come and see that moment. But you know, that's his teaching, and so his teaching lives in us on stage, you know, every night. You know.
So, sister, let me ask you if you would. I'm thinking about the mother or the father, mother and father, that might be equivocating about whether or not they're going to pay the cost, take the time to put their daughter in dance recital or dance school or whatever it might be. What was the greatest value that you realized from going through that learning process? And what should they be aware of? What are some of the benefits that come from putting that little girl out there?
There are many great values and many great benefits. Dance is universal. Yes, you're learning about your body and how to move it, and you're learning how to have rhythm and how to express yourself. But not everybody who goes to dance school becomes a dancer, right? There are so many different applications of what you learn in dance school that you can use throughout your life. Learning how to dance with other people, having the confidence to dance by yourself, learning other cultures, understanding just how music works, understanding how your body works, understanding what it is to be a student and then become a teacher, understanding how to take this information and perform on a stage. That anywhere can be a stage. You can be at Lincoln Center, you could be at Arena Stage, or you can be in a classroom teaching and that becomes your stage. So there's so many different values and benefits to going to a dance school or learning dance from someone. The arts, so important when it comes to self-expression, or if you're having
confidence,
if you're having a great day, being able to channel that into your dancing. If you're having a terrible day, being able to channel that into your dancing. But it's something that's ever evolving. You never stop. You know, and the beauty of dance is that you can be the music yourself. That's what stepping is about. We are the music. We are dancers and musicians at the same time.
Making the music.
Exactly. You can see that in tap dancing as well. But you can also dance to music. So there's so many different avenues and so many different ways you can approach the art form.
And you know, you raise a good point. I mean, to your audience, if they have young people, they should look for programs. I'm just listening to Mfon talk, and you even asked the question. You know, we should get more of our children enrolled. We should be a little more aggressive about that, because you can learn, I mean, the community, the team building skills, the discipline, the self-confidence, the self-love, you know. I used to, you know, ability, you know, learning how to work through challenges, or even just letting off aggression. I used to joke that I might be mad before the show, but after the show, it's all good. I'm okay. Somehow it's worked out. You know, because you've released some things in dance, in the arts. And we do need to get more of our children, and I think it needs to be more of a priority to really take seriously arts education and study of it. Not with the objective of becoming an artist full time, but just to develop as human beings.
Okay, so I was captivated by something else also. If it sounds like I liked and loved this show, it's because I did.
You like to love this show.
The costuming.
Oh, yeah.
The flow of the costuming.
Yeah.
The reveal of the costuming. The seduction of the costuming. So who wants to take a shot at costuming?
Yeah, I mean, both of you guys should really talk about that, because
please
they've done
do.
some amazing jobs.
Please do.
I'll just open and say that we've had an amazing costume designer for this show who did the original design, but the support of Arena Stage, and that has been stunning. But please, you guys should just dive into that.
Right, the original costume designer, Kanan Kwanda, really gave us a great foundation. And here, the process, you know, of remounting this work really has opened us up to the intentionality of exactly what we wanted to see.
Intentionality.
Yes.
Yes.
How we wanted the pieces to look on particular dancers, what color scheme, what color palette, the richness of the colors. How are we bringing out this one element of the panel? How are we recreating a moment in this panel? Like, one of my favorite moments is, I can't remember the number of the panel, but it's the lady and the man that we recreate on the stage, that exact part. And it's like, if you take a second to look at it, it's breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's breathtaking. And I saw how the wardrobe department
Here at the
really
arena, yes.
took samples and found and sourced the lace and sourced the gold foil and created these garments, these beautiful garments, to help support what it is that we saw, that vision. So
Yes.
bringing Jacob Lawrence's vision to life on that stage
Yeah.
with these garments. Just the process has been phenomenal.
They've really given us an opportunity to dream.
Yeah.
You know, to think about what it could be, what the costumes could be, how they could really help tell the story.
Yeah.
And then they made it happen.
So,
it's
you
amazing.
know, I grew up in a baseball family, baseball obsessed family
Yes.
in Southern Maryland, Brandywine, Maryland.
Oh, wow.
And one of the highlights of the summer would be my hometown team, which consisted of several of my brothers, actually blood brothers, and I was the bat boy, would play against the Indianapolis Clowns.
Look at that.
Oh, so when you
Look
saw
at
that
that.
costume.
So when I saw the costume came out, at first my eye, I couldn't see what, I was like, is that Chicago? It was in the distance.
Fascinating.
I couldn't see it. But the richness and the
Yeah.
clearness and the crispness of, because baseball, during the
That time.
time that we are talking about,
Yes.
was the sport.
was so much the sport.
Yes.
And a galvanizing force among so many that came on the migration.
Oh my God.
That when I saw that Clowns baseball, I was like, man, this is truly, I swear to God, this is something for everybody.
Well,
So
but-
I was
go
going to
ahead.
speak to that. So one of the things we talk about the process of creating a work like this is the way that we're able to the artists are able to make connections to their own migration story, their own family history.
Yeah.
And so that moment really happened because one of the artists made his own connection to the Negro Baseball League and said, this is who I want to play. This is the character I want to play. Can y'all make this happen? And again, Arena allowed us to dream.
So let me ask you,
Yes.
did by chance, did he have a history of playing Little League or high school?
I think he did
baseball?
have a history in playing baseball, and he's created a whole character around his love for baseball and the connection, the family migration story in connection to the Negro League.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing that you brought out, especially in the way you connected to it as well, because that really came out of the artist making his own connection.
Yeah, I remember in International Town they had a guy. They were the Harlem Globetrotters of
Absolutely.
baseball, and I mean
And the Clowns were?
the
Specifically?
Indianapolis
Oh, wow.
Clowns, absolutely, and they barnstormed. They barnstormed all over the country and were an unmistakable attraction.
Yeah.
They could do trick
Yeah.
stuff with the ball, man. I'm telling you, that was truly a highlight.
Well, that's why
Like
this
where it was.
partnership with Arena Stage has been so huge, Rock, to be honest, because Arena Stage is one of America's great regional theaters, and they specialize, and they talk telling American stories. And so they did a production called Tony Stone that was about that time, the Negro Baseball League and whatnot. So that costume was actually lifted from that production. And they have other productions that they've done that have helped contribute to, they've built like this huge bank of wardrobe. And
Yeah.
so this partnership with Arena has been really important to us too,
Yeah.
to not only have the space, the stage to do the work in, but working with their technical team, with their costume shop, their wardrobe, their lighting, their sound, to really create the most excellent production we can
Yeah.
for this piece. And Jacob Lawrence's work deserves that. Step Afrika deserves that. Our dancers deserve that opportunity to be able to tell the story at the highest level. I think we are.
Yeah.
We've achieved that.
You know, I actually live in Florida now.
Right, yeah.
But while I was living in the DMV, or, you know, I've lived and left a few different times, but I saw the Pullman Porters play here.
Got you. Crowns.
Yes. I saw Nina Simone,
Oh, okay.
4 different phases of Nina Simone. and it was something else.
Polk County is one of my favorites from back in the day here at Arena. It was a fantastic piece from almost 25 years ago.
And seeing the artistry of the migration, I connected to all of that. I connected to and especially when you're talking about moving, and the greatest mode of transportation was the train. So the Pullman Porter, and
oh, that costume was what kills me as well.
Man,
I know, right?
man, let me tell you.
Yeah, that's special when he comes out.
Because
that was the job. That was the job.
That's dignified. That's dignity. That was show enough dignity. I was like, okay, and it's showing an elevation to a position that is a position of pride and respect.
Yeah.
And it just the way you guys tied it all together. Did I say before y'all need to come see this play? Get the playbill.
Yeah.
Get the playbill and
get your tickets.
Read it before and after. Get your. How long are you here? How long does this run?
We're here until July 14th. And after that, we will do a 5-week tour across the country. The fall of 2024.
Okay.
So DC, we'll get to see it for quite some time, but then this October we'll be in Richmond. We're going to take it to Chicago, which will be rich. I can't wait to see what that will be
the
like.
way we put this up, we got viewers all over the country
I know.
And internationally. So I ain't talking just to folks here in DC. While it's going to be here through the better part of
the summer.
Yes, the rest of June and part of July, but it will be coming your way sometime in the fall. Keep this in mind. Don't miss it. You will absolutely thank me. And let me thank the three of you for coming, man. This has been if this is labor, if this is considered labor, doing this interview is a labor of love, because I just kind of want to, it felt so good leaving and so euphoric. This continues to connect me to it, and it feels good. And I'm going to try to, I have to come back again because I got to bring my wife with her seatbelt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you, and fun.
Thank
you,
you.
brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Folks, that wraps us for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, I encourage you to experience this incredible experience called the migration. God bless you, and I'll see you the next time.